What if the thing that made you feel broken as a child was never a weakness at all, but the beginning of your strength? My real name is Thomas Cruise Mapother IV. Most people know me as Tom Cruise. Before the films, before the expectations, before the noise, I was simply a human being trying to understand his place in the world. And this is a brief story of my humble life, not as an actor, as a person. Now, let me speak to you, honestly, from my life. Before I go any further, allow me one small request. If stories like this help you slow down, think clearly, and keep building yourself, then like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe if you haven't already. That support matters. Quietly, deeply, over time. I grew up without stability, not in chaos, not in tragedy, but in constant motion. My childhood was movement, boxes being packed, suitcases half open, goodbyes that came too quickly. Just when a place began to feel familiar, it was time to leave again. New cities, new streets I didn't know yet, new schools where my name was mispronounced before it was remembered at all, new faces, faces that watched you closely to decide where you belonged. More than a dozen schools before I finished high school. Every year, sometimes every few months, I had to start over. New classrooms, new rules, new expectations. Just as I began to adapt, everything changed again. That kind of life doesn't give you roots. It doesn't give you comfort. It doesn't give you the luxury of ease. It teaches alertness. You learn to walk into a room and understand it quickly. Who holds influence? Who keeps distance? Who might become a friend? You learn to observe before you speak, to listen before you trust. You learn that fitting in is not automatic. It is earned. And sometimes, it is never granted at all. I learned to read people the way others read books. Their tone, their posture, their silences. You don't expect comfort. You prepare for change. And slowly, without realizing it, that becomes your normal. You learn to adapt, or you fall behind. At the same time, there was another struggle. Quieter, less visible, but just as heavy. Dyslexia. Reading was never simple for me. It wasn't slow. It was unstable. Letters refused to stay in place. Words shifted as soon as I tried to focus on them. I remember staring at a paragraph and feeling overwhelmed before I even began. In classrooms, this wasn't understood. Not back then. Some thought I wasn't trying. Others thought I wasn't capable. And when expectations drop, you feel it immediately. Slowly, those judgments sink in. You begin to question yourself. I worked twice as hard to understand half as much. Homework took longer. Reading required endurance. That kind of imbalance can break confidence, especially as a child. You learn to hide, to avoid attention. But something else was forming quietly. Persistence, patience, tolerance for discomfort. Years later, I would openly speak about this, not as a label, but as proof. Proof that difficulty does not decide your future. Dyslexia did not disappear. I learned how to work with it, how to prepare differently, how to compensate with focus and repetition. What once slowed me down became a reason to master preparation. I didn't grow up chasing success. Success felt distant, undefined. What I was searching for was meaning, something solid, something stable. I wanted structure, not control. Structure. For a while, I even thought about becoming a priest, not to escape, but to find direction. I wasn't trying to stand out. I was trying to stand firm. I asked myself questions most people don't ask that young. Who am I when nothing stays the same? Those questions shaped me. And quietly, life was already preparing the answer. Acting entered my life quietly, without certainty. It demanded presence, honesty. For the first time, my restlessness had direction. Acting didn't care about my past. It cared about preparation. I learned something early. Preparation creates freedom. The more prepared I was, the calmer I became. Discipline wasn't limiting me. It was grounding me. I wasn't chasing fame. I was chasing accuracy. And for the first time, I felt aligned. When I moved to New York, there was no sense of arrival, only urgency. I waited in hallways with dozens of others, young, hopeful, replaceable. I remember the silence of those hallways, the kind of silence that makes you hear your doubt. I slept wherever I could, on couches, on floors. There were times when money was tight enough that every decision mattered. What to eat, how far I could travel, whether I could afford another class. New York didn't reward dreams. It rewarded persistence. I learned something essential. I wasn't entitled to anything, but I was capable of improvement. Fear was always there, not loud, but constant. So I chose preparation, not preparation as perfection, preparation as calm. The more prepared I became, the quieter fear grew, not gone, just manageable. Preparation didn't make me fearless. It made me steady. Nothing felt guaranteed. Every role felt temporary. I stayed alert, focused, serious. Talent alone was never enough. The ones who lasted were the ones who prepared. When success came, it felt heavy, not freeing, heavy. A breakthrough doesn't give permission to relax. It gives responsibility to raise your standard. As visibility increased, so did judgment. Every decision became a statement. I chose not to react to noise. I returned to the work. Discipline isn't punishment. It's protection. Protection of focus, identity, energy. Years later, as the scale of my work expanded, the same principle remained. Be fully present. Be accountable. People ask why I do my own stunts. They assume it's about ego. It isn't. Very early on, I made a clear decision. If I ask the audience to believe, I must respect that trust. That means showing up myself, not hiding behind shortcuts. Preparation is responsibility. Commitment is quiet. It shows up early, stays late, repeats the work long after novelty fades. There were moments I felt misaligned. I had to slow down, listen inward again. Alignment matters more than approval. Principles only matter when they cost you something. Respect the work. Prepare fully. Protect integrity. Preparation is respect. For the opportunity. For the people. Reputation lasts long after attention fades. Creative control is accountability. If something works, credit is shared. If it fails, responsibility stays. Comfort whispers. It tells you to repeat. Growth asks you to evolve. I chose evolution. Again and again. This work is physical. Endurance matters. Preparation sustains longevity. Talent opens a door. Discipline keeps it open. Nothing is owed. Everything is earned. Confidence is not a feeling. It's a result, built through action, repeated effort. Looking back, I don't see chaos. I see training. Nothing was wasted. Struggle was never a detour. It was the training. The pressure you survive is the strength you keep. Excellence was never a moment. It was a habit, built quietly, repeated daily. You don't rise to ambition. You perform at the level of preparation. Wherever you are starting from, none of it disqualifies you. What matters is who you become when no one is watching. If you want to know more about my story, the parts I didn't share, tell me in the comments. And maybe we'll continue this story in another video. If this story stayed with you, stay connected. Follow Fluent Diary for the next story. If you're building your English and your mindset at the same time, stay with us. Because greatness is never given. It is built patiently from the inside out.